Revelation 3315. From the 2nd of November 1944. Paying off the debt of sin through children and children's children. The consequence of sin is also its punishment. This is to be understood in such a way that every sin has its consequences, which in turn have a corrupting effect on the sinner, which is why we can then speak of a just punishment. However, this punishment is not inflicted on the human being by God, but he himself has incurred it because he has given the direct cause for it. However, the consequences of sin can also take a long time, but they inevitably come, only then they do not affect the person himself, but his children and children's children, so that they have to bear a punishment that was inflicted generations before. It is an apparent injustice of God, but it is always a matter of souls who need particularly difficult living conditions to mature and who have chosen particularly difficult living conditions for their path in life. They bear, as it were, undeserved suffering and are also in spiritual contact with the souls of those who are to blame for this suffering. Thus they are influenced by those souls to pay off a debt which has followed them into the kingdom of the beyond and which would require an excessive amount of time to pay off in the hereafter. And God accepts the atonement of children and children's children. If the human being can pay off his guilt on earth himself, there are countless possibilities to do so. That is, the human being has to cope with the consequences of sin. He will then, in a manner of speaking, have to suffer the same fate he caused others. He will have to bear the suffering he caused others. Sin in its effects will always affect him again and he will not be able to defend himself against it. But then he will spare his descendants all these sufferings which he himself has caused. But if he enters the kingdom of the beyond with this guilt, he will not find peace there until he has again persuaded the people close to him on earth through mental influence to atone for his former sin on earth, which then earns them an earthly fate which clearly reveals the sins of the fathers. Of children and children's children, the atonement for the sin committed is accepted in order to awaken in people the sense of responsibility as well as to underestimate the greatness of a guilt. In the beyond, sinners suffer immense torment when they see people on earth atoning for their guilt, and therefore the guilt is atoned for twice and accordingly paid off more quickly, just as, conversely, a person who knows about the sins of his fathers does not bear the punishment so heavily because it appears just to him and his soul thereby reaches maturity more quickly on earth. But it is exceedingly easy for a sinner to be absolved of his guilt if he lays it at his feet in deep faith in Jesus Christ, if he sincerely asks him for forgiveness after he has sincerely repented of it and endeavors to amend. Then the consequences of his sins will also be absent. He will not need to fear that his guilt will have to be paid off by his descendants. He will be freed from his guilt for the sake of Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for the sins of mankind. Amen.